Hey, this is Alexa Peterson with the Hitting Vault. I'm going to be doing a swing analysis on Carlos Correa from the Astros. This particular video doesn't start exactly in his starting stance. He started a little bit of loading into his back hip right there, but in general he's pretty well balanced in his starting stance. Right here, nice and balanced, knees inside his feet, front shoulder down, chin right by his shoulder right here. He's in a neutral position, kind of with his upper half. So we start to see, as he loads into his back hip, you see that he actually has very little movement with his upper half. There's some hitters that just, it works for them to have minimal movement, whereas hitters like Donaldson or David Ortiz, like those are some hitters that it works well for them to have big movements with their upper half, getting their barrel working really far forward in front. He has very little movement, kind of quiet with his upper half, and that's a style that works for him. So his upper half is pretty quiet. He has a pretty decent leg lift here. You see he's maintaining good posture with that leg lift. A little bit of internal hip rotation. You can see his belt buckle is turned a little bit in. His weight's nice and balanced, not going way outside his back foot. Goes forward, kind of a controlled fall going forward into his launch position right there. So some things here that we see with his launch position that we see over and over again with elite hitters is that front shoulder slightly lower than the back shoulder. That knob kind of down towards the catcher. Elbow up, elbow down, doesn't really matter. It's dependent on the hitter. Some hitters like to have that elbow really high up here. Some have it down. But regardless, they need to be able to maintain this position here, front shoulder down, back shoulder up. His hands are right above his, or just inside of his back foot. You'll see with elite hitters, they're somewhere in this range. What we don't want to have as hitters with their hands outside, well outside their back foot. That's going to get them too far extended. Lower half, we see some decent bend in his front knee, a little bit longer back leg, good distance between his feet. You start to see him using his core and his hips turning with his belt buckle going towards the pitcher. So a little bit higher pitch, you can kind of see it's just above his belt. So you really see this back elbow working down, this front elbow kind of working up and then across to get his barrel on plane. What we don't want is that front elbow to immediately shoot up and kind of pull up and out. That's going to drop that barrel really low. We also don't want that front elbow working down towards the ball. So he's releasing his back foot. If we were to put a line right by his back foot, his heel wouldn't cross over it until after he gets through contact, through extension. You'll see hitters kind of fall back like that onto their heel, and a lot of people think that this is squishing the bug when they land like that, but that's just hitters when they're catching their essentially catching their balance, catching their weight after they've released their backside. So see how he becomes weightless right here. His toe actually comes up well after contact. Now he's catching himself on his back heel there. And some hitters think that they should always have that heel on this side and kind of like behind their toe, but that's not the case. That doesn't happen until after contact, after extension. We see him instead rotating with his hips into a firmer front side. His front side starts to straighten. With his hips turning hard, you see that back foot kind of go up and move forward a little bit. And you're not going to have, not every hitter goes forward, not every hitter goes up, but every hitter that's on time, that is hitting the ball well, they're going to have that back foot kind of become weightless, kind of come up on that toe. Maybe they only come up that high all the way through their swing. That's fine, but a lot of hitters, they just bring that back heel around and they just squish the bug immediately. So that's kind of a little bit information about that back foot there. You see that barrel working behind him. His belt buckles towards the pitcher. When that knob is back, or the end of the bat is kind of back towards the catcher, his belt buckle is already towards the pitcher. So a good contact position. A little bit of bend in both of his elbows. Some hitters you'll see a little bit straighter on that bottom hand elbow, but this particular pitch, and Correa himself, he tends to have a little bit more bend in both elbows. Makes good contact right here, right off his front foot. Good extension all the way, kind of right there. You see he's kept his torso tilt throughout his swing. Even though it's a higher pitch, our shoulders shouldn't be perfectly level on swinging a pitch. Swinging at a pitch that's a little bit higher in the zone, you're still going to have a little bit of shoulder tilt. Not as much as if you were hitting a pitch way down here, but you can see that he does still have some tilt. Good finish there. Overall, he has a really great swing, and definitely one that for a hitter that doesn't like to have a lot of upper body movement, he'd be a good example of a person to kind of try to replicate.